I'm sorry.
It's really more about winning. I've said this over and over and over. Rule one is win.
At any cost?
As long as it's legal.
As long as it's legal. What if it's unethical? So one of the main strategists for the left, not only in Colorado, but in the nation, is my drinking buddy, Ted Trimpa. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I wish you wouldn't win so often.
I wish you could be better.
No, my team cannot do that. It's not in our DNA.
You did better this last cycle than you think.
We really did. Let me jump on that. I don't think in Colorado, other than our tax issue, which I ran, and vote on fees, even the state didn't go the way we wanted. We lost only one Senate seat.
And that was because your candidate was really bad.
In that one Senate seat?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Suzanne Steyert. She had so much baggage, she couldn't find room for it. She couldn't fit it in her car.
Now, Suzanne's a dear friend of mine.
And I've heard she's terrific.
She is spectacular.
But politically, that got tagged on her, and
I believe so unfairly and untrue. But that's the nature of politics. It was ugly, and
you knew something up when we were on network TV.
You mean ads
on network TV.
Does that mean you were scared of Suzanne Steyert?
No, we just knew you could go in for the kill. But there were other people that did all of that.
Let me. Yeah, I know it wasn't you personally, but let me ask this. It seems to me the attacks on someone like Suzanne Steyert was because of a fear that she's so talented, she actually knows the system. She was the assistant to the Secretary of State. She knows how to get things done. That this was a career you did not want to get, the royal you, the left, didn't want to get hold. You didn't want to run for Secretary of State. And it seemed to me, just from the outside, that this ridiculous attacks on her on network ads was, this is one chick we don't want in office.
I actually think it was more that, there was blood in the water, and we could sense this is something that we could win. There was some thought about, and I'm sure discussions around, this is somebody who could move up and cause us a lot of pain, but I think you're giving us more credit than we probably deserve, to be honest. I probably just ticked off a bunch of people, but
I'm sorry.
It's really more about winning. I've said this over and over and over, rule one is win.
At any cost?
As long as it's legal.
As long as it's legal. What if it's unethical? There's a real difference between illegal and unethical.
I get it. One person's unethical is another person's, okay, it's on the line, but it's ethical. Now, you should be ethical.
That is so Clinton-esque. That's right. What the definition of is.
Well, but it's really, what is the bright line? Is there really a bright line?
Let's go to the politics of personal destruction. So, for instance, knowing what some of Suzanne's kids had to go through because of those ads is heartbreaking. And I'll spare you the details, but the idea is that if we break this person enough, if we beat them up enough, they won't go into politics anymore. I've seen it. I've seen it on local school board candidates, good people whose kids are bullied and destroyed at school. These people can't even go to the grocery store without people yelling F-bombs at them in the produce aisle. All of it is legal, but let me tell you, that division is wrong. That type of it is Saul Alinsky's. One of Saul Alinsky's greatest rules is you triangulate. You focus on one person at a time. You triangulate. You destroy them, and then move on to the next. My team has not been good at that.
I tell you, I would bet and think some people would be willing to do. You agree not to do it. We agree not to do it. But the reality of it is this type of campaigning can win. And do you want to win or do you want to lose? And do I feel really awful about all of that, even though I wasn't personally involved in it? Of course. You don't want any kid to go through that kind of pain.
Well, but
she decided to run. When you decide to run for office, there's certain things that you're signing up for.
Didn't used to be that way. And even what you said...
it shouldn't be. I agree with you.
When you said, I agree and you agree, that doesn't apply anymore because thanks to campaign finance laws, if you and I are running, we don't run our campaigns because we can only ask for this amount of money, and independent expenditure committees and C4s and 527s can get massive amounts of money. So candidates have no control.
Thank you to your side for Citizens United, which opened up floodgates for even more money into it. So it's a little difficult for you out of one side of your mouth to make that argument.
Excuse me, we didn't bring Amendment 27 into this state. I believe that was common cause on your side, and in my office is a wonderful poster, I'll let you take a picture with it, that says, vote yes on Amendment 27, get big money out of politics. And of course, it did just the opposite.
Now, that I agree with. And I think that, particularly on the federal level, you see this. Whenever they started putting on the max contribution limits, to the party, to candidates, more importantly, for my point, the party, it pushed a lot of this money out into the independent world. And because of you can't coordinate, you can't say vote for, vote against. So it's, Joe Schmoes, schmuck, call him and tell him that. And you run that during, campaign season, then obviously that drives down his numbers, and that's good for you. That means you don't have connection to that because you're so limited about how much money you can raise. And so we know money's going to be in politics. Anybody who says you're going to take money out of politics,
so getting to your point,
you're high.
Doesn't that make it impossible then to say, hey, I won't do that to you if you don't do that to me, we're running against each other?
It's impossible to do that.
It's impossible. Yeah. So what you said before can't be done. And then I go back to the second question. So is there an ethical issue when you go into the politics of personal destruction?
Well, first of all, I would take issue a little bit of calling it politics of personal destruction because that presumes that there's some intent. We intend to personally destroy you.
I think that's a pretty fair assumption.
No, it's, again, if you decide to run for office, this is what you're signing up for, good or bad.
And that's why Aunt B doesn't run for city council? No, I think there was a time that it was different. Listen,
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. It's just the reality.
Also, in the Royal, your team versus my team is not good at the politics of doing that because we don't want to win. We'd rather be right. And let me tell you, after so many years of being right, I can't take being right anymore.
You guys are really good at that on the federal level, though.
Being right?
No, about going after somebody, destroying them.
Let's talk about that because Colorado so often is an outlier from what happens in the national elections. This is not the first time that Colorado kind of goes this way, and it was a big win year for Colorado this last election. Republicans lost control of the Board of Regents for CU, lost more control on the Senate. We lost, wolves now can be parachuted into other people's backyards, my favorite one. People in Boulder are now sending killer animals to people on the West Slope. That's a delightful thing.
You can't shoot the bears.
You can't shoot the bears. You can't, the Family Leave Act, which I think is going to be one of the most crippling politics that we've done, I think, in 5 years.
Chicken Little.
You don't think so?
No.
Really?
No.
You think it's going to stay solvent?
We'll see. We'll see.
You know it won't.
Yeah, let's see. But it's the right thing to do. We got to figure out a way to do it. We really do. We're an industrialized nation, and we're one of the few that don't have these kinds of policies. And,
you don't believe
if you can't do it federally, then at least start doing it in the states.
All right. So you're telling me that I'm reading between the lines that the plan. Oh, look at that look in your face. I know. So the plan is you start doing these obscene things in the state and build up.
And just so everybody knows, this isn't what we talked about. We're going to talk about, which is great because I love the free flow. So what was the question again? I'm sorry.
So the idea is you get these little bits of, I'll call it socialism, you call it common sense, in the states, get some differing systems, and then sooner or later, President Bernie Sanders or Kamala Harris has to pass some legislation to do it nationally.
Okay, I agree with that in part and disagree with it in part. In part, in terms of the strategy, yes. In terms of where it's going to end up, I'm not for sure I agree with you there. It's not going to be everything that Bernie Sanders wants.
Well, let me just put it out on family leave. Once the system is actually in place and paying people to take every Friday off, which you can do, and some cases get 90% of your pay for not going to work, it will go it will go insolvent within 3 years. My choice, my prediction. We'll find out.
Let's see. Let's talk in 3 years and see.
Yeah, I might not be around by 3 years, but
me neither.
Yeah, so somebody's got to pull up this tape. That being said, at the same time, I'll argue that a policy like that hurts the very poor, very people the left claims to say they want. That it's going to be harder for small businesses to hire people because this is an extra percentage point of taxes. It'll be 1.2% very quickly, and then when that gets bumped up, they'll do some compromise and it'll go to 1.5 within 5 years. Put that on the tape to go back. And it's going to hurt people on the lower end of the scale who can't get jobs because of that.
See, this is just where we fundamentally disagree. You know, it's yet conservatives again saying, gee whiz, we're not going to help people that are lower income, you know, living paycheck to paycheck. And why would we ever want to create a program to try to help them? You know, what are we going to do? Leave the system as it is today? So, I mean, what's the alternative?
The alternative is a free association.
Free association, but they don't have... This is like conservative economic thought or free market economic thought. You kind of assume that everybody has equal access to data, that everybody has equal access to education, equal access to even try to get some form of capital.
Wait a second. Which side wants equal access to education? The side that wants actual educational choice so people can choose a school that's right for their kids instead of this one-size-fits-no-one behemoth that the unions give us and destroy kids' lives.
Because you don't fully fund education and we don't pay teachers well.
We pay teachers quite a bit when you add in the luxurious retirement they get, and they can get it in their mid-50s.
Luxurious retirement?
You want to compare para to my retirement plan, which is zero, let me tell you. All right, so things like the minimum wage. What I don't get about your team is how hateful things like the minimum wage are. And I see. When
you say hateful, what do you mean?
There is something beautiful when two people have a relationship of their choosing. So if two women are neighbors, one owns a small accounting firm in her house that she runs. The other one is a stay-at-home mom who just finally got her kids off to school. She wants to learn something new. This other person can afford $5 an hour. This other woman says, oh, I want to learn accounting, and the freedom I have by being so close to home and being able to run home to see my kids when I need, this is perfect. You win, I win. We want to have this voluntary relationship. If these two women wanted to get married, your team would sing their praises. These two want to have a financial relationship, and you go, that is perverse. These perverts shouldn't have that. Tell me why I'm wrong.
John, first of all, this whole freedom of association, that you have the freedom to do that. Some people don't have the freedom to do that.
Talk to me about the two women I just described.
Because they need it. Well, first of all, you're saying, oh, it's okay, you liberals, to say that you can get married, right?
And it is okay.
But then you can't associate around economics. I mean, that's like comparing bananas and hammers.
You can't have a relationship you want. These two women want to have a relationship of employer and employee. You say that's perverse, and you're being exploited.
I'm not saying it's perverse. I'm just saying there should be a minimum wage in terms of what you get paid. There should be a living wage.
This small business doesn't survive because all they can afford is $5 an hour. This woman misses an opportunity to learn a new skill that will give her more money in the future. It's not all about money. My big frustration with the left
It's not about money, but you just need it to live.
It's not all about money because the left thinks that everyone values the same thing the same way. Some people do value money as the common denominator. Some people desire a job that's close to home or more flexible. Some people want a job in a not-for-profit to learn something. And your minimum wage and this family leave denies people the right to have those relationships. How can you not want people to have relationships?
We just fundamentally disagree. We do.
That's not an answer.
No, we just fundamentally disagree because I don't believe that. I don't think. First of all, there's no evidence from places that have done $50 an hour that absolutely decimates small business. It doesn't. You had small businesses that support raising the minimum wage. You have small businesses that supported family. All you had to do was watch the TV and the ads to see that there
That's
were.
not a majority. Those are wonderful one-ups, and I can show you lots of
You know,
small businesses
we as a
that did
society
like it.
have to set certain standards, certain minimums as to what we're going to do
You
and
know,
how we're going to treat.
Focus on the Family and the moral majority said the exact same thing. Am I wrong on this? That we need to have certain morals, certain standards. I'm saying that people deserve the right to have relationships of their choosing.
So you can't compare
Yes, I can.
the arguments of morality that came out of the old focus on the family. You don't see it as much as today's. The old focus on the family with the morality of people need a basic living wage. Come on, John.
It is a human basic dignity to be able to have relationships of your choosing. That is a basic human dignity.
And a relationship of their choosing. If they
that
had enough,
you don't find
if
offensive.
they had enough money in order to make a living, in order to,
so that's
feed,
your standard.
to feed their kids.
But not everybody wants a job.
Forcing them into a job that doesn't give them enough money in order to live.
Wait a second.
There's nothing about freedom of association with that.
I'm sorry. I thought you just said forcing them into a job. I believe we had a whole frickin' civil war about forcing people into a job. So I don't think anyone is forced into a job.
So now you're saying that people in my world are for slavery.
Yes.
Oh,
and let me say it because what you're saying is people only value money. There are people, you say you want a living wage, but there are people out there who want a job not because of the wage, but because they want to break into this business. They want to learn about the music business. They want to help out this not-for-profit. There are reasons other than money, and you're saying they don't matter.
You can still do the same thing, John, and have a baseline in terms of what people need to get paid.
Really? Yeah. In the situation I just described.
We're running in circles because we're going to come to the same place. We're going to come to the same place each time.
All right, then finish this question. The two women I described in that scenario, who you support the right to get married, so do I. They don't have a right to have an employer-employee relationship that they want to have, that relationship, because, finish the sentence.
Because you should have a wage that is a living wage that you can actually live by. The economy can support it. There's not evidence that if you have a $15 minimum wage, all of a sudden everything collapses. And this idea that because of your desire or what you're saying is a right to freedom of association for someone with some type of employer-employee relationship, that trumps the fact that you should be paid a minimum wage that actually allows you to live? I mean, why does it matter about freedom of association if you're not making enough money to live?
This woman wants to learn something, and because of
She wants to learn it so much that she's not going to be able to feed her family because of your idea that there shouldn't be a base standard in terms of what people should be paid.
She's a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, so now we're changing all
No, I said it at the beginning. Stay-at-home mom. Kids are finally going off to school. This is her opportunity to get back into the workforce and learn something. This is a job she wants because it's close by and it's a friend and she wants to learn about it.
She has a desire to learn about something. I mean, there are all kinds of things that she could volunteer for, things she could do, go to a community college.
If you want to have a gay relationship, that's fine. But if you want to get married, no. America, we have certain standards. You could still have a civil union, but you shouldn't have marriage. And therefore, there's no reason. What drives me nuts, and I'm not joking about this. I'm not trying to just...
It obviously drives you nuts.
It does. It really pisses me off. It incenses me that the left claims that they care about freedom and people having their civil liberties. But if they have their civil liberties and make a choice that you find perverse, whether it's to have a voluntary relationship at under $15 an hour, whether it's to smoke a cigarette, by God's sake, or to buy a plastic straw, or to have a free plastic bag that you can give to your customers, the left says, no, that's too perverse. And for the greater good, we're going to ban your right to have that relationship. And this is the same.
And so we're going to use the same logic which you used earlier. So using that, so then we should have slavery.
No, that's not a voluntary relationship. That is the opposite of a voluntary relationship. What you're requiring is a government seal of approval on somebody's relationship. I find it morally
It's
abhorrent.
A societal approval of we believe everybody should be paid $15 an hour.
A societal norm? You want to tell me
not?
out of all the work you've done for civil liberties and gay rights, you're now going to default to norms instead of the freedom to do what you want?
Oh, come on. Okay,
I'm not joking.
No, you're playing with the word norm. You're playing with the word norm. A societal standard. We agree. For example, it's the same thing. We agree that a man and a man can get married. A woman and a woman can get married. That is a standard of society today.
So you were okay
now, we can
with
go
it.
through and make all kinds of legal arguments as to why that's the case. That's why we have the law. But at its base, it is a societal standard that we're all agreeing to because we agree to the law. It's the same thing with minimum wage.
I thought we all agreed. And this is why...
See, we were going to talk about national politics and we're talking about minimum wage, which is fine.
What I don't get is that there were civil libertarians on the left who fought for the rights of folks like neo-Nazis in Skokie, Illinois, because the principle mattered more. And growing up, I heard things like, the ends don't justify the means. And now I hear from the left, the ends justify everything. Instead of convincing people to pay their employees more, instead of building a system that can...
Following this logic, then we shouldn't have OSHA. We shouldn't have workplace standards. You have a voluntary relationship with somebody. I can accept the fact that I could fall off of a building. Well, I've accepted that because I really want this job. I want to really learn how to make a skyscraper.
Mm-hmm. And then
there are no safety standards. So I can go up, I can work because I decided voluntarily to work with you, whatever you're going to pay me, and the wind comes up and I fall. And there shouldn't be a rule about that. There should be a societal standard. The minimum wage is the same thing.
The difference is you don't know that asbestos is raining down on you at work. You're not going to know that. You do know if they allow smoking in this place. So now if smokers want to get together and have a whiskey like we're doing.
So you haven't answered the OSHA example.
That the idea that a private bar cannot allow smoking on their private property for people who want to have the perverse relationship of having a cigarette and a beer with a friend of theirs, that is so perverse we can't do it. If somebody wants to work there, they know it's a smoking place. They don't know if the scaffolding's unsafe, and therefore I think, yes, there are some standards, not nearly what OSHA does, which is ridiculous, not nearly what EPA does, but the idea that if people willingly want to have a relationship, they should. And it's odd
so
that
we shouldn't have a societal standard about protecting human health. Because there's an overall cost to the use of tobacco and what happens. And there's no question now about the health effects of secondhand smoke. No question.
So you know better than other people what to do with their own body?
That's where we are today.
Wait a second.
So why should I be able to...
Because my skin in is me. And if I want to smoke, then I should have the right to do so.
Right, but you shouldn't have the right to put somebody else's health in danger by doing that.
I'm not.
We're drinking. This doesn't put your health in danger because I'm drinking.
And
if I were smoking, it would.
At my lovely bar here, if you want to smoke, you can. And if somebody wants to work here and go, oh, it's a smoking place, I'm not cool with that, they don't have to work there. That's freedom. That's a beautiful thing.
But that assumes that people going out looking for a job have equal access to a similar job. Okay, I can go to the job A and choose to be in a smoking environment, or go to job B and be in a non-smoking environment. It assumes that you have the choices of A and B. A lot of people don't. That goes back to family leave, that goes back to minimum wage.
And a lot of people, we don't live in a world that is as clean cut. And I'll just leave it at this. And then I do want to leave a couple of minutes here to talk about national stuff. I find it offensive when any bureaucrat says, our morality should apply to you. I'll do the same thing when it comes to end-of-life issues. I've got people on the social right who say, you know what, you can't end your own life. If you can't go ask for doctor's assistance, you and the doctor cannot have that free association, that relationship to ease your suffering and bring you to death the way you want to die, because my morality says that's wrong. And enough people in the country believe the same with my morality. I find that so very offensive that I thought in a country...
But see, you're using a universal definition of the situation around right to die, and on that I actually agree with you. But using that as an example, the OSHA example, the minimum wage example, the family leave example as basically intellectually the same choice that you're having to make as the kind of the foundational way of thinking about it. I mean, I just think that's ridiculous.
People having a choice to have a relationship or what to do with their own body, overall, I think is a
But it assumes you have choices. Okay, let's go to national politics.
I want your morality. I want your morality.
This horse is dead. This horse is dead.
We started this conversation. This is a whiskey. It's good bourbon.
It is good bourbon.
Your team was supposed to have some real national success. Congratulations, you got rid of a president you don't like, but you did not switch the House. You did not switch the Senate until Georgia happened.
Right, which
and
because it was not, of Trump.
And, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Largely. And I also, let me say this, I think Georgia was different because
it's also great organizing. Stacey Abrams has been doing a lot of work for a very, and I tell you, I remember when she first started this work moons ago and was going around collecting money, telling people about it. And I mean, I always believed in it, but there were a lot of people who thought she was crazy.
Let me add
really,
on to
Georgia, you got to be kidding me. The only time a Democrat can get elected if it's Sam Nunn, who's really in today's politics a Republican.
Let me double down on what you said, because so many people in my world don't understand the power of community organizing and that dirty, awful, hard work that Stacey Abrams brought in. What Stacey Abrams did, our team doesn't appreciate. We don't fund that kind of community organizing. People are knocking on doors.
That's very true.
Yeah, because it's a multiple-year effort that requires...
Your idea of community organizing is just relying on certain constituencies that you're going to give them something, so therefore you assume they're going to show up, like evangelicals, which I've never understood. Well, I do understand, but it's not logical to me as to why evangelicals would support Trump given everything that he's done around morality. But yet he gives them something so that therefore they support him.
That's an easy one.
To you, that's organizing.
Well, two things. One, that's easy to explain. The same reason that leftists and environmentalists wrap themselves around polluters like Al Gore, who owns 5 houses that have this incredible footprint, or Leonardo DiCaprio, who has his own charter plane to go get an award, that sort of green award, is that they say, well, yeah, we don't care about him. What he does for the cause it works. And what you said earlier was you want to win more than be right. Well, if you're an evangelical and Trump is going to do more for the pro-life movement, then they're acting more like you.
Well, but see, okay, you're, again, mixing bananas and hammers. To say winning is right, to win or not win, lose, that's a question. That doesn't answer to you what policy you're going to do. And the policy you're going to do could be a lot of like who you want to support.
But you can understand why I said that.
You're basically saying that winning trumps whatever the policy is going to be.
No, I'm saying that evangelicals can vote for a man they find immoral because he will help them get the morality policies that they want.
No, an
environmentalist...
You got a Supreme Court.
Right. And environmentalists can laud Al Gore, even though his Tennessee home has a carbon footprint that's 10 times the average.
I get it. I get what you're saying.
So getting back to Stacey Abrams, though, because that's the part. Our team, we like shiny objects. The dull, boring grind of community organizing, which brought a Democratic president in Obama, which delivered, I think, was more of a reason why the Senate seats went D in Georgia than just Trump. Our team doesn't get that because it's not flashy.
Because God forbid you want to actually communicate and connect with people.
What do you mean by that?
Connect and communicate. Talk to them. Find out what they want. Know where they live. Send people in to talk to them.
Can't we do that with some sort of No, we have an algorithm that will tell us what every voter wants.
Okay, so let's go to Wall Street, find all the Republican bankers, and get an algorithm about how people are going to vote. Come on.
So you are convinced that this canvassing, community organizing, actually works?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I can tell you, this last election, people shouldn't assume that because Trump won, that it was a big night for Democrats, because if you look down ballot, you know, there's Senate races.
Trump lost?
Yeah, because of Trump's loss. You would think that there would be, you know, a drag, you know, with other races. For example, you know, look at Susan Collins in Maine. Yeah. There are Senate races that we all thought we were going to win, and we didn't.
Why was that?
I actually think that the socialism message actually plays. As much as I hate it.
Because it's accurate?
No, it's not because it's accurate. It's just, it's like saying you're a wife beater. You know, once that's labeled on you, you never really can get away from it. You know, it's like, you know, do you still beat your wife? You know, you're screwed no matter what answer you give.
You can't say that AOC and Bernie are not socialists.
Some of the things that they do, but that presumes that Bernie and AOC, you know, define what the Democratic Party is, which it isn't.
Kamala does.
Which is why
President Kamala.
This is actually my point. That is, I think that is breaking through. I think that there are folks that are scared of where Ocasio-Cortez could take the party. They're scared of where Bernie Sanders could take the party. I mean, look, Democrats struck back. I mean, South Carolina, granted, seemed like manna just fell from heaven, but how Klobuchar, Buttigieg, all that happened within days was because people were scared that Bernie could end up being the nominee and we would lose. So to assume that the party is just Bernie and Ocasio-Cortez isn't right. However, you use that message in Senate races. That message was used in state legislative races. And I would argue, I don't have any data, this is just me spitballing my instinct. I would bet that's a large part of why we didn't win more down ballot. And it's a message to us. We need to really think through. It goes back to, there's a ton of research that shows Democratic primary voters, there aren't as many of those that line up with Bernie and Ocasio-Cortez than you think.
I will also say, if you talked to me a year ago today, there was no way Trump could not get reelected. He was overseeing a huge economic boom. Unemployment levels were at all-time low. Minority and black unemployment levels were at all-time low. And
U.S. debt was starting to soar even pre-pandemic because of tax cuts.
Yeah. But the one thing that mattered the most to me was beginning to skyrocket, which was people at the lower end of the economic scale were getting pay raises at a faster rate than those at the higher end. And
wow. Okay.
No, it's go look at it, it's true. And that would have been deadly.
So corporate pay with CEOs and people on Wall Street were increasing at a slower percentage than low-income workers.
Not just CEOs.
All right, you should stop drinking.
Not just CEOs. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll let somebody fact-check that one. But no, we found people at lower income were finally starting to get some traction, that their pay raises were going up, and it was going up. If not for COVID and the economy collapsing under it, if not for race riots,
and Trump completely mishandling COVID.
The perception that he mishandled.
Oh, wow.
Oh, listen, Warp Speed has done more. I heard from leftists that we were going to get a vaccine for 3 years.
The only thing I'll give you on that is pressure and allowing pharmaceutical companies to get a vaccine faster. I will give you that some of that pressure, that had to have an effect. But everything else has been we're going to use a market-based approach in order to address public health. Wow. And we're going to have states compete against each other. So Kansas is going to pay more for the exact same thing than Arkansas because they had to compete on the open market. So we're now going to allow market forces to determine whose health is going to get protected. That's crazy. That comes back to community standards.
We also have 50 different states running their systems in 50 different ways instead of one system that one president decides.
Because that's really efficient to have 50 different healthcare systems.
To have 50 different experiments.
With the pandemic.
Point being, if not for the pandemic, and I don't think Trump would have lost.
It would have been much more difficult, and I think that we should really focus on, 20-some-odd thousand votes, 24, I can't remember, 24, 27. Had they gone a different way in 3 or 4 states, Trump would have been reelected. even though Biden got, what, 7+ million more votes. That says something. And we need to be, there isn't this, and my Democratic friends are going to get upset with me, there isn't this like big Democratic wave.
No, there isn't.
Trump shot himself in the foot. And his handling of the pandemic, just part of him, I think people finally did say enough is enough. But when you kind of lift the hood and you look how we did in other places, for we Democrats, it's a yellow, I think, it's a yellow flag. We need to really be thinking about what we do and be careful about what policy mandate we think we got. I think that there is an overall...
You didn't get a policy mandate.
I would agree with that.
You got a, we're done with Trump mandate.
We did, however, get a bring back the spirit of America and, quite frankly, I'll use your word, ethical America. You can't tell me that an everyday American is going to say, I'm going to condone his type of behavior and what he would say on Twitter and what he would say at rallies.
So
I mean, that's nuts.
There's a Politico that I follow very much, and I take his words to heart. He said something, he was a Democrat, and he said, you know, you guys want to be right, we want to win. Trump won. And so for me, I decided, by the way, that was you I was talking about.
Yeah.
At the beginning of Trump's election, I was not a Trump supporter at first. I said, I will judge his presidency by policy changes. Nothing else, not what he says, not what he does, not this, what he puts his signature to.
Authoritarian tendencies, destroying the office of the president, utilizing the power of the president for personal gain, gain for his family, political gain for himself. Come on.
Do you not remember the Clintons? Wait, political gain for themselves?
To compare Bill Clinton to Donald Trump?
Hey, they both
no offense, I love you, that's laughable.
They both made sex now not a political thing. Thank God. Thank God for...
Oh, really?
Thank God
you're going to compare, and I hope this is okay to say on public TV, you're going to compare a blowjob with all the sexual things that we know Donald Trump did and how he talked about it in terms of grabbing something. That's now the same?
You don't see that Clinton opened the door that you cannot judge a person or a president by his sexual behavior? That's a no-no. So I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank Bill Clinton for the incredible education he did for oral sex.
And let's also thank Bill Clinton for the fact that when he was leaving office, we were actually in the black as a country.
All right.
Imagine that. A Democrat putting our country in the black.
You have said my Democratic colleagues won't like this. My Republican colleagues won't like this. The danger when Republicans are in control is that they spend like Democrats. So we had George W. Bush.
Like Democrats? More than.
Yeah, more than. We had George W. who teed up
and you spend it on your wealthiest folks, the CEOs, while people at the bottom end of the ladder get less. At least when we spend, we're helping everyday Joe and Jane.
No, sorry. When government doesn't make money, let me tell you that. They don't create money. They can only...
Under Republicans, they just print it.
And under Democrats. So let me finish my thought. So George W. went on a debt spree. That was nothing compared to what Obama did on a debt spree of money that doesn't exist.
Oh, because
which is nothing. Let me finish.
He was just facing one of the greatest economic collapses
which is
in our nation's history.
To what Trump did on a debt spree makes Obama look like a miser.
The difference is Obama was saving the country and Trump was giving tax breaks to his friends. Well, the 5 friends that he has left.
Let me ask you this. We'll wrap up and finish up this whiskey. If instead you had to, your pay was completely linked, and your heart was completely linked to getting Republican control back in Colorado, alternate universe, bizarro universe.
Right.
What would you demand that Colorado Republicans do in order to win?
Get in touch with unaffiliated voters.
What does that mean?
Figure out what your base is. You know, because there's so much, and I have no evidence on this, just a gut instinct. The support for Trump within the Republican base is less about Trump, even though everybody says it's defining Trump. And I realize this is counterintuitive to a lot of people. But people saw energy. They saw something. Oh my God, they're doing something. They're bringing something back. They see power. And, you know, actually disruption can be good. You just got to figure out what you're going to disrupt. You know, Governor Polis is really good about disruption, or, you know, the economy, certain things, certain norms, which is good. Finding that kind of energy and figuring out how you tap into that, plus organizing, and then having leaders that will stand up and aren't seen as just people that are on the far, I guess, your far right, my far right. You know, because when you look at a Governor Polis, when you look at a Speaker Garnett, when you look at President Leora Garcia or Majority Leader Steve Finberg, these are all leadership members of the Colorado legislature, they're not out all screaming Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders rhetoric. You know, they're talking rhetoric that a lot of people within our party are like, I really wish you would be farther left.
When I look at this,
but they're being realistic. What do you have on the Republican side? Do you have any, and I'm going to use this word and I shouldn't, moderate voices? I would say reasonable voices. You really don't. You know, and you go to your donor class, at least the ones that I don't know many, they're frustrated too. And they're not frustrated because they're like, oh, gee whiz, Ted, I agree with you, or I agree with all you Democrats. But they want some voices actually that'll resonate, and I think of it politically, with unaffiliated voters. And that's just not happening. You know, screaming your base vote message over and over and over doesn't get anybody.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I would say that I look at folks like Hugh McLean, or Minority Leader in the House, Minority Leader in the Senate, and folks like Lundeen. These are not Bible thumpers. These are not moralistic.
And they're now new, or relatively new.
Yeah, they are, and that gives me hope. As far as the mechanics, what would your mechanics be? What is it, you Republicans, you conservatives, whatever it is, mechanically, you need to do more of this and less of that?
You need to build a better infrastructure around communications, and it's not just having some entity out there that, you know, says a message on social media, or you have a couple print publications and that's what you do. That's a piece of it. I don't see, in terms of how you communicate with unaffiliated voters, any organized effort around actually communicating and getting to know. I mean, do you really know what issues they care about, and who they are, and where they live?
Do you mean
organizing?
Organizing, knocking on people's doors.
Organizing. You know, even in pandemic, there has to be a way to figure this out. And I still think that there could be a voice for the Republican Party, or whatever the Republican Party is going to evolve into, hopefully something a little bit different than what it looks like today, that could really pick up a lot of those unaffiliated voters. I mean, I think we have to remember, unaffiliated doesn't mean independent. Unaffiliated means I don't feel comfortable affiliating with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And they can vote either way. And there isn't a counter voice to what we're saying. Because you may all say, you hear me talk, oh my gosh, that's just lefty socialism, it's going to be the end of the economy, and it's Ocasio-Cortez, which you know that's not the case.
Oh, I know it is the case.
Oh, come on. And what we hear from Republicans is nothing that's speaking to unaffiliated. And until you figure that out, and just having a website and having a print publication isn't enough.
You're saying
I would think.
You're saying we actually need to knock on doors, say hello, and talk to people.
Imagine that, yeah. Leave the country club.
Leave the country club and go knock on doors. Ted, thank you so much. Always appreciate it.
As always. Good to see you, John. Happy to do it.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.